that pay tests, and we're going to learn through that pay test now. Everyone stay on, can stay on. You're more than welcome. Talk about me learned. It says, Be'ula, if a rumor abounded that this girl is no longer a virgin, so a kohen gadol cannot marry her, ain't chayshla. We're not chayshes because till now she had a chazaka that she was a virgin, so why change that? Sorry, Arusa, if they I skipped a little bit. Nesuya, they came along and said that she's married. When does our Mishnah say that we worry about rumors if they say it happened today? But if they say it happened a while ago, since till now she had a chazaka that she was not married, she was not engaged, she was not, a ba'ula, then a rumor cannot break a chazaka unless you're saying it happened today. Arusa ain't chayshlo. We're not chayshlo either. What happened? Shalei leplani, and I'm a big machek to shine him in the Girsei between the Rashba and the Rashi. So our version is Rashi. Shalei leplani. If they don't give the name of the person that the rumor with, if you just say that she did this or whatever, and we don't say to who, or she's married, if we don't say to who, then ain't chayshlo. That's not much of a rumor. Be'ir acheres, if they say it happened some other town, ain't chayshlo, because there's no way of ever proving it. Mamzeres and chayshula. Anything which is against the what we assume till now, we're not concerned with. Shivcha ain't chayshula. Shivcha, we're not worried. We don't chayshish. If we say Higdish playing the chasav, this person made all of his assets into Hegdish. Hivke playing the chasav, that he made it all hefker. Ain't chayshula. We ignore it. Omar Ula says Ula loish shamu kol havara. When we talk about rumors, and havara really literally means echoes, because that's what a rumor is. One person says something, next person echoes what that person says. It's like broken telephone, and it goes on and on and on. So, if I heard of a voice of when do we take into consideration a rumor? There has to be also props. There has to be also other things that are surrounding it that sort of gives credence to that rumor. For example, you're saying she's getting married today. Then suddenly we see there's all kinds of candles burning in the house. Like it looks like they're having a party. And and beds, the sofas are made. People are going in and out of the house. And they're saying that she got engaged today. Not she was engaged 2 months ago, but today is Miss Kadeshes. She is engaged. The Dilma Loy Aktisha, so the Gemara. If the rumor is that she will get engaged today, what kind of rumor is that? But maybe it didn't happen. But maybe it didn't happen. Amos, what the rumor is, plainis niskachaya. The rumor is she got engaged today. And it's very important. Only if they say it happened right now. If they say it's been going on for a while, we definitely dismiss it out of hand because she has a chazaka that till now she was not a married woman. So we're not going to change it because of the rumor. The Levi said the same thing. When do we take into consideration a rumor? The candles burning and and beds and sofas are made, even nashim tavas and women there are weaving and they're getting ready. Law and they say plainis and they're all getting ready for this big festive occasion. And they say that this girl is getting married today. Same idea, but the same question. Miskadeshes, if the rumor is she's getting married, I know what happened. Maybe she got cold feet the last minute. She got engaged today. Same idea. Not that they heard just a rumor. Same thing. You have to have all of these events around the candles and people walking into the house. If they come around and say that this girl just got engaged to this guy, then that's a rumor. And we take into consideration, we suspect that it's true because of everything else we saw. However, if they didn't say anything, then I'm asla. Then that's like an excuse that nothing really happened. So the Gemara, if they said nothing, then why break anything? Well, they said nothing. What are we talking about? There's no rumor. You tell me they said nothing. So the rumor is that she married somebody. But if you tell me they said nothing, there's no rumor. There's nothing to break. Gemara says, this comes to negate the opinion of Rabbi Baravuna. The Omar, he says, a masla, he says, what's considered an excuse? Sha'amru that we're talking about, afilu mikan va'ad yom, you can come up 10 days later. No, the rumor starts today, and 10 days from now you can come and change it. Kamashalon, loy amru, hu da have a masla. When is it considered a masla? Only if they didn't say the rumor without saying also the masla at the same time. They would have said that she got engaged, and later on come along and say different things about it. that that it didn't really get engaged, it's not an amasla. Like I said in the Mishnah, if they say there's a Tanai there, for example, that's not an amasla if that came out a week later. It had to come out at the same time. The rumor they got divorced. There's a Tanai. They got married, and there's a Tanai or a suffix, whatever it is. What do we say that we take into consideration a rumor? So there are different opinions. When do we take? So this opinion we just learned right now, all of them say is when we see that there's more evidence, the fact what we see of their behavior, it looks like it's true. Rab Abba said, you know what? We need to find the source of the rumor. So we asked them, so where did you hear this rumor from? And they'll say, Pliny or Pliny. And then Pliny. Yankel heard from Shmerel. Shmerel heard from Beryl. Beryl heard from Leah. Leah heard from this, and so on and so forth. And they continue checking it out till they come to the very source to see whether it's it's above Maisa, whether they there were witnesses or something. Ma'al Yasi. So Gemara says, if you go to Dava Bar, isn't that, it's not a rumor, it's like real witnesses. What does that mean then? What do you mean? You tell me a rumor is only if you can go back to the source and find the witnesses. So what makes it a rumor? It's like any other event that happens. We have witnesses. They definitely happened. Rav Shmuel, the son of Yehuda, came from Israel, and he explained. Not that you just heard a rumor. They have to say, when they repeat and disseminate the rumor, they have to say where they heard it from, and the person that they heard it from. Where did that person hear from? You go back. But the original witnesses are no longer here; they're overseas. So because he gave all these names, it sounds credible, and even though it's not a fact, because the original witnesses are not around, that we could question them. And but a rumor has to have, you can't just accept the rumor the way it is. Interesting question. What happens, a rumor abounded, and we accepted the rumor, and then the original people supposedly who spread the rumor came along and said, we never said it? What happens then? You would think, what's the question? Of course, you quash the rumor because the original people said it never happened. But the problem is the rumor was already accepted, and we behaved accordingly. So how do we go about it? Do we quash a rumor? And the Rashi's second shot is the way I just told you, and Taisa likes it as well, that the witnesses came back and said, the original witnesses came back from overseas and said, it never happened. So what do we do with the rumor? Do we quash it or not? And the other version of Rashi is that we heard a rumor from children. They were the ones who were spreading it. Do we quash it or not? It says the Gemara Amalei, the Amar of Chizah said that a rumor you have to follow up and find out the source. Until you go back to the original source, that they heard it from two reliable people, two witnesses. The only problem is that they went overseas. So what is he from here? And Shmamina, so it seems from here. Why are we checking it out? Because we want to make sure it's true. We don't just accept rumors the way it is. We want to make sure it's true. So if the very founders of this rumor come along and say, hey, we never said it, then you would think we quash the rumor. We cancel this rumor. Abai says, maybe no. Adrabah. Let's learn the other way. But the Amar Rav Sheshes says, that even if women come forward and spread the rumor, it's enough for us to take it into account and behave accordingly. And even though they're not kosher witnesses, if there's a call, we take it seriously. And once the call has been established, even the original witnesses come back and they quash it. You don't listen, and we don't quash it, which is pretty hard to understand in logic. If it all came from them and they say it's not, and we never said it, it's difficult to understand the logic why you actually don't quash this particular coil. Anyway, but remember, we're talking about there were other events happening that also support the coil. For example, we saw candlelight dinner, we saw people coming in and out of the house. So there's more to it. And therefore, even though the witnesses quash it because of these other things around it, and the rumor already has been accepted, that we say we leave the rumor standing. Omalei, Rabbi Yosef says, Atarvasa Ninu. You're right. There are two, depends which community you are part of. Besura mevatlekol. In Surah they cancel the ko, and b'minadoy levatlekol. Every place has their own meaning. That's how Rashi. The other learners that there's a machlekes in between Rav and Shmuel, and then each place passes according to the one paskin. There was a rumor abounding that this woman married this yeshiva or got engaged to yeshiva. And so what Rav Chama, remember we said you have to check it out. So Asir Rav Chama Lavur, Rav Chama invited the father of this girl to come forward. What exactly happened? He said, Al Tanai Kodesh, he made a condition. This chassan made a condition. He promised he won't go to the city of Chazai, maybe it's dangerous, whatever. And if he doesn't go, he'll marry her. But if he does go, then the marriage is annulled. But he went. And that's why we don't, it's only a rumor, we don't treat it seriously. And if the girl is still free. Malay. So he said to him, no. Kivin, Achama said, Kivin to be eaten to have a color, la have a masla. This amasla came about now, you're telling me. But the rumor did not have any amasla attached to it. The rumor was that they got engaged. Then lav kol kaminach, we do not trust you, the marzek and the masla. Here we're thinking that you came up with, you realize you made a mistake, they should never have got engaged, so you're thinking of an excuse, and you came up with the babmeiser. Because if it's true, it would have come out. Remember again, the Tanai undermines the rumor. When we have an amasla that undermines the rumor, amasla is from the word emes loy. It is not true. That's what a masla is. That's the source. Rashi and Ksuva says emes loy. So if there was any, since you're undermining the rumor, if there's any truth to this amasla, it would have come out at the same time as the rumor started. So I missed the line. There's another rumor that bounded that this person gave kedusha to this woman, but at Sifa, the Tuchla gave him, these are the dates that are not totally ripe. And what they do is they put it in these into these vessels made out of palms, and they let it get a bit more ripe, and then they eat it. But because it's not ripe, they cannot eat all the flesh. Some of the flesh remains behind, and then they feed it to the animals. And this guy gave this woman these unripe dates, and with a little bit of flesh still remaining on it. Very little value. The Ina the Beis Shifa was the creek over there by Beis Shifa, or the spring, and Sholcha Rav Ide. And that's the rumor. The rumor is that he gave it to her, and they're married, and they're engaged. What would you say in this case? It was a rumor. He said in this case, even those who say that we don't cancel a rumor, here we will. Why? Because Meimar Amar, if we see her marrying somebody else, the average person is going to say, what's going on here? We thought that she got engaged. They'll say, must have been that they went to the rabbi who officiated their chuppah, and they discovered that what he gave them so little value, it was not even worth a pruta. People will automatically assume the amasla. In other words, even though we said before we have to come up with a masla, but sometimes you don't even have to come up with a masla if it's so obvious. And over here, people, if they see her acting this way, that she's marrying somebody else, the only conclusion is that there is no value. They said there was not a pruta there. There was a rumor went about the Ikdusha, she got engaged with she got engaged to a person. However, no one knows who. Knows one person in this group, but we don't know to who. Again, the question is that a rumor that she cannot marry anybody else till she gets a ksuva, or what? Again, this is a masla that wasn't spelled out, but it's obvious. Why? But will say, there's a whole group of people there, all different ages. The Rabbana looked into it, Kedusha couldn't have. It must have been the Kedusha of a young child, and therefore a minor, and therefore it didn't count. In other words, if we see her, because it wasn't so definite, the rumor, and we see her marrying somebody else, then the only conclusion could be that she was never really married. Why? It must have been a cotton. Was another rumor, they captured the cotton. Haninik Gadol was this young minor, but he had a body, the physique of an adult, of someone over 13. And the rumor was that she got engaged to this person. Such an incident happened, but and they said that he did not come to the separation. Now, this young person, even though he looks like a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, he's really only 11, and he did not reach a separation of Reuven between maturity and immaturity. It says Reuven that what's considered that Reuven is separate from the rest is when he becomes mature and intelligent. This kid, everyone will realize straight away he's only a kid, and therefore we don't need an amasla. It's an obvious amasla. Then the Mishnah says, a masla should have a valid excuse. A masla sha'amru, here comes Rabbi Huna says, even 10 days later, I feel kind of Hashanim, and Azvid says, the mokam amasla choishin la amasla. He says that even if you don't have, even sometimes you didn't actually spell out what the masla is, but if it's a possibility, we can see ourselves as a possibility of a masla, then we say that maybe that there's an amasla. We don't even need to hear it from that person. We ourselves are going to cancel the rumor because of this possible amasla. In other words, if there's a mokkam amasla, you don't even need a masla. Says the Gemara. What are you talking about? The Mishnah says, the Mishnah clearly says, provided that there was no amasla there. Amalei said, "B'mokam amasla come." It doesn't mean that there was no amasla. It means that there was no grounds for a masla as well. That you yourself don't agree that if there's an opening for a masla, we ourselves are going to come to that conclusion. But now we're learning in Maria Bamas. Her husband went overseas, and people think that he died. So she went ahead and got engaged to a second person, and then the husband came back. Now, really, she never got engaged. She never got married to the second person. Now, in this case, she only got engaged. She never got engaged because she was still a married woman to the first person. Nevertheless, we say that she has to leave the second husband and go back to the first. But in this case, you don't even need a get because nothing happened. Now, why don't you need a get? Because we're going to assume, why don't you need a get? And yet, if she married that second person, and even though halachically she's not married to the second person at all, she can technically go right back to the first husband because he never died and never divorced her. Nevertheless, we are worried, we live in Maria Bamas, that people will think that the first husband divorced her. She married a second guy, and then she now got divorced from the second guy and goes back to the first guy. People think, he's taking back his divorced wife after she married somebody else. And that's why she's forbidden to the second husband and forbidden to the first husband. She's forbidden the second husband, obviously, because she was a married woman and she lived with this guy, even though it's not her fault. But she cannot go back to the original husband either because people are going to think marze girushas. So how come in the case when they got merely engaged, we say that she goes back to the first husband? Why aren't we worried about marze girushas? So you know why? Probably because we're going to assume that the second husband got engaged with her on the Tanai that her first husband no longer comes back. Now that he came back, the condition is nullified and she can go back to the first husband. So she was never engaged really to the second husband. So we make that assumption. So don't we see that we make it a masla? We make up a maslas even though nobody said it. That's the most question to the papa. But now, didn't we learn? Is Gacha, she got engaged. And then her husband came back. Muteres Laza, she can go back to the first husband. She doesn't need to get in the second one. Why? Why are we worried that people will think that that she's going back to the first husband? Isn't it because we will conclude al Tanai Kaddish that the second husband when she gave an engagement ring to her, he said it with a Tanai, if your first husband doesn't come back, and therefore and the Kedusha buckle. So we clearly from here that we make up a maslas even though nobody mentioned it, because that's the only possible conclusion. It's in the Gemara, shiny husband, there's different. Why is it different? The Asi Baal the Kama'ar, because the husband comes and he complains, and he says, I never gave her a divorce. And the only reason is because we thought that he died. No, and therefore nothing to do with the master. I never gave her not because we think that he gave her a divorce, but we just say the second condition never really happened. And he goes back to the first one. No, it's because he never gave her a divorce. The husband says, I'm here, I never died. So therefore we know he was never married. She was never married to a second person. That's why she can go back to the first husband. Nothing to do with the master. So the more obvious question is, so why if she married the second person, which halachically she's not really married because she's a married woman, why can't she then go back to the first husband? Says the Gemara, if so, why can't she go back? Nisas Nami. So even if she got married to the second person, why can't she go back to the husband if we're saying that she never really was married? Nisas of the Yisura, when she married another person, she's partly culpable. Why? The husband didn't come back. The Bezdin ruled she can go. And there was a single witness that came forward and said the husband is dead. The reason is because we are relying on her that she'll exhaust all of her, all the possibilities to find out her husband alive or not. And obviously she didn't do that because the husband came back. So therefore she is partly to blame. So of these Surah Kansur Rabbanan, this gotcha, but in the case of Shimekadil, of these Surah, like Kansur Rabbanan, didn't catch them. Amar Ravashi. We'll continue to talk about rumors, which rumors we take into account. Any rumor that was not established in the Bezin, Lav Kol, the Bezin didn't accept it, it's not considered a rumor. Ravashi said, no, the Bezin didn't investigate to see if any grounds for this rumor. Ravashi said, Kol the boss in the any call that came back, that happened after she got married. No, she got married, and the next day, the following day, all kinds of rumors came about that she was a Zaina, whatever it is, whether she's a Mamzes, all that kind of stuff, we ignore. Rav Chaviva, Marafil the boss, even she didn't get married, even merely got engaged, and then all these rumors came about, we ignore them. Says the Gemara, the Hilchos Alei Chashinen. Though Ravashi said only if it's after marriage we ignore it, but after engagement we don't ignore it. And Rav Chaviva said even after engagement we what do you call it? We don't ignore it, and the halacha is we don't take it into consideration, and that's the halacha. It's a case brings an interesting case where Rabbeinu Tam had a woman got married, and there's a rumor about that she was already married to somebody else, and that other person was standing at the chuppah of her marriage now to this other husband. And Rabbeinu Tam says she does not need any get from the first person at all. First of all, we're not chayshes once they get married, but even if the other opinions that maybe are chayshes, in this case, because the supposed husband was standing by the chuppah watching her marrying another person, a woman wouldn't have the chutzpah to marry a second man while her first husband is still standing there. So that in itself is enough reason to say that we ignore it. So you want further, ignore the rumor. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yirmiyah ben Abba, Sholchel bei Rav Shmuel, Yeshiva of Rav after Rav passed away, sent the letter to Shmuel, and they asked him. Remember, Rav says that you don't quash the rumor, and Shmuel says you do. So they asked the question. They asked him the following question. The way around. So the Gemara here. Sorry, just lost the place. Yeah. So they sent the Shir after Shmuel. Please teach us. Now, what happens is that there's some kind of rumor that came out from the first person. There's a rumor that she was engaged to somebody, and then when she went, another person came out to her and gave her proper kedushin in front of witness and everything else. Now, what do you do in this case here? Shmuel sent back. Tate say, Shmuel sent back, she should not live with the second man. And then Midu Adava Buruv. I want you to investigate, was she engaged to the first man or not? And then I want you to come and then tell me what your research, what you discovered. So the Gemara says, so what are we worried about here? Exactly, what's going on here? You tell me, what's going on here? If you're going to say the Megalia Mills, if you're going to say that what? If we're going to find out and discover the Kiddusha Kama, Lav Kiddusha Ma'al, if you're going to say that the first Kiddusha never really happened, Mevatlina Kola, are you going to tell me then we're going to quash the rumor? But the Hanadoi, ask for the Shmuel lives in a doi, and we learned before, he says any rumor that started, we don't quash it, even though we do research. So what are we worried about? We're going to find out that the rumor is Baba Mises. Is that what we're trying to find out? It's not going to help, because according to in Shmuel's place, once a rumor was accepted, we don't in any way dismiss it. She needs to receive a get from that first person. Ella, this is what we're looking into. The Imegalia Milsa, if we discovered Dushikama Kedusha Malininu, that if we discovered the other way around, that the rumor is not only a rumor, but it actually we have facts that they got married Mahatoira, so then she does not need to receive a get from the second husband. That's the investigation here. Let's get Mesheni. You don't need a get from the second husband because she was already a married woman. And if you're a married woman, what's the point? Her marriage to the second person was meaningless, insignificant. Says the Gemara, Upliga Lechaylis argues Rav Huna. Why? Because Rav Huna said, H is Ish, if a married woman, As far as we know, she's a married woman. If she then stands there and somebody else proposes her and she accepts, mikudeshes, she's considered engaged. Why? We know her to be a married woman to somebody else because of the chazak of Rav Amnuna. What Rav Amnuna say? Rav Amnuna said, if a woman says to her husband, Gerashtani, you divorced me, then men she believed. Why she believed? Because chazaka, the rule is, ain't isha me'iza panav. No woman has the chutzpah to look at her husband and say, you divorced me when she did. Says the Gemara. So therefore, if she extends her hand and accepts kedushin, obviously she was divorced from her first husband. No, it's a good point. So what is what do you call? What was the point of Shmuel here? Because the idach, the others say no. When do we do what Rav Amnuna is right? That she wouldn't have the chutzpah, the fun of only the husband is standing there. In this case here, we're doing the investigations whether she was married to the first person. And then even though she married the second person, the husband's not around, doesn't show any way that she was brazen in her behavior. She has the chutzpah, so it proves nothing. And therefore, if we find out, that's what we want to find out. If she was really married to the first person, we're going to say to her, you don't even need to get to the second person. A woman does have a chutzpah. Yes, she does when the husband's not around. Says the Gemara, what happened? They looked, and they couldn't find either way. What happens then? Abuna said, so this is what happens. The rumor was about the first person, and she married the second person about Torah, but we don't know whether she was really married to the first person or not. So what happens? So Abuna said, Megarish Rishon, the first person has to divorce because maybe the rumor is correct. And then V'noisa Sheni, she can go ahead and marry the second person if she wants to. She can marry the second person again. Avol Megarish Sheni, but what we don't want is that the second person should divorce her and then V'noisa Sheni should go back to the first person that the rumor is about. And why not? My time. Because people might think, people might think that how did she marry? If she was married to the first person, how in the world did she get married to the second? She probably received a get. So how can she now go back to the first person? If she receives a get from the second person, she can't go back to the first person. Therefore, we don't want her to receive a get from the second, go back to the first. Better get a get from the first and go to the second. So Mara said, my time also made people conclude that he's taking back his grusha from the Edison, and that he's going back to his first to the first husband after he divorced her and she married the second person. Rav Shinna disagrees. So Ravidi, he says, Af Megadish Sheni, the second person can divorce, the nice you go right back to the first person. People might assume that the first person divorced her, she got engaged to the second one, now she's going back to the first. Meimer Amma, people say, Aine Rabbanon B'Kedushe, like we said before, that the Rabbanon, the people were surmised that Rabbanon must have looked into it, the Kiddushim Toizav, and they realized that the whole Kiddushim of the second person was a mistake. It was a mistake, and therefore you can divorce the second person and go right back to the first person. And why would they come to that conclusion? Because they'll say that she probably was married to the first person, and therefore the Kiddushim of the second person had no validity whatsoever because she was a married woman, and therefore she can go back to the first husband. What happened? What happens that a rumor came about from both people? Mahu, that she was engaged to both people. What happened? We learned now that the first person was a rumor, and the second person there were witnesses who saw her get married. What about there's no witnesses to the second person? There's a rumor that she was married to the first, there's a rumor she's married to the second. What do we do now? In this case here, Gemara says here, Papa Abzu, in this case also, Megadish, let the first person divorce the Noise Sheni and let him marry the second person, because if she gets the second person to divorce her and goes back to the first, people say, the first person must have divorced her. She got engaged to the second person and now she's going back to the first one. And it's not right. So that's why we should do that, yeah. Amema says, Muteres Lishneim. Amema says she can marry either one. She can, even if the second person divorces, she can go right back to the person. And in this case, everyone is murdered. Why? Because there's no fact that they got engaged to either one of them. It's only a rumor. Hilchasa Muteres Lishneim. The halach is that she is mutter to marry either person. She's mutter to marry either person. Anyway, that ends the Gemara today. Taser again has a whole interesting, another Abenu Tam issue where, what do you call it? That there was a rumor that the first get was possible, so he had to write her a second get maybe a month later. because of these rumors, and it's not good to have a get with rumors, cast all kinds of aspersions. The din is that after a get, you have to wait 3 months so that we know the child if it's from the first husband, second husband, in all cases. So over here, because we only wrote the second get in order to take away the laws, any allegation that people make, when do you start counting the 3 months? From the first or the second? And the Rei Tam rule from the first, because that's really the kosher get. The only reason we make a second one is because of laws. And he's saying, right here, we see the rumors we married to both people, and yet we say, don't worry about how can she go back to, if she gets divorced on the second person, why aren't we worried that she goes back to the first? People will talk and everything else. Because when it comes to rumors, we are not so strict. Same thing over here.
You wait from the second, he says in the Tosfos, not the first.
Sorry?
He's from the second, he says. Lahamtin shloisha chodoshim mitzman get sheni, not from get rishon.
Right, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I think you'd say get rishon.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, the D is the one who argues. You're right.